Hi guys, this lesson is on ratios. The math standard that we will be covering today will be 6.RP.1.1, understand the concept of a ratio, and use ratio language to describe a ratio relationship between two quantities. I know that kind of sounds a little bit confusing right now, but I promise you this is one of the easier lessons that we're going to be doing. So what you're going to need is your pencil. We're actually going to be taking notes and writing directly on our workbook pages. Since the examples are so good in this one, it was pointless for you guys to have to write extra stuff. So we're going to be looking at pages 20 through 22, starting at page 20. So at the top of page 20, this is what you're going to see. So I want you to take a moment and just watch and listen, and then we're going to be taking some notes in a moment or two. So there's different ways that you can actually compare amounts or quantities. So since we're dealing with ratios, the best thing to do is to define what a ratio is. A ratio is a comparison of two or more sometimes quantities or amounts by division. Now, if you look at the example that you see on this page, so we're looking at these paper clips here now, the paper clips that are in the black box, you see that there's 2 red paper clips and 6 blue ones. So if I were to ask you to write me the ratio of red paper clips to blue paper clips, you would say that there are 2 red ones and 6 blue ones. So the way that you would write that would be these 3 ways right over here in this box over here. Let me fix that up. There you go. So there's 3 different ways that you can write a ratio. One is with the word 2, spelled out T-O. The other one is using the colon, which is what those 2 dots are. And the third way, and the most popular way, and the way that we're really going to be writing them mostly in class this year, would be the way that they kind of look like a fraction. And I shouldn't say kind of, because they do look like a fraction. And we're going to be doing fraction type things to them. But what you want to always remember is that you keep it so that you always are comparing 2 numbers to through division. So by making them look like a fraction, that would work. So now it's your turn to start writing some stuff. So you can see at the top left in the work zone area, I would like for you to write the word ratio and then define it, a comparison of 2 quantities, which is what that means is amounts, by division. Remember, there's 3 ways to show ratios, and I've got them in that box with an arrow drawn to them. And the last thing that I haven't mentioned exactly yet is, but just like fractions, ratios are going to be shown in simplest form. And we're going to be talking about that in a moment. So go ahead and get this copied down and pause your video. When you're ready, go ahead and press play again. So let's look at example 1. Example 1 reads, write the ratio in simplest form that compares the number of red paper clips to the number of blue paper clips. Then explain its meaning. So this is the same example that we just talked about a moment ago. So since in our word problem, it's asking us to compare the number of red paper clips to blue paper clips. So here's our red right here, and here's our blue. We need to write our answer in that order, red first, then blue. So when you're writing this, if you're going to make it look like a fraction, you could write it as 2 over 6, meaning that there's 2 red ones and 6 blue ones. Now, just like we mentioned before, you do have to simplify these. So simple, what you're going to do is look at what your greatest common factor is between 2 and 6. So the biggest number that goes into the 2 and the 6 is 2. So you would simply divide by both those numbers by 2, giving you 1 over 3. Now let's talk about what that 1 over 3 is going to mean. Now, our standard tells us that we have to understand the concept of a ratio, and that's basically simple enough because you're basically counting in this picture. However, we also have to use ratio language to describe what's going on. So when we're looking at the 1 to 3, what that means is it means that for every 1 red paper clip, there are 3 blue paper clips. Now, you can't sit there and say 1 paper clip equals 3 blue paper clips. That's not what that means. Or 1 red one is the same thing as 3 blue ones. You actually have to word it in that manner because on quizzes and tests and your end of the year tests, this is the terminology they're going to be looking for. So if you look at the part that I underline here where it says, this means that for every one red paper clip, there are 3 blue paper clips. This is what your answers need to look like when you're asked to explain the meaning. So go ahead and jot that down like I did here over in your margins, where you're telling me basically that your answer needs to look like what our arrow is pointing to. Okay, so now it's your turn to try one of these. So over here, for example A, you're going to write the ratio in simplest form that compares the number of suns to the number of moons. Now, once you do that, make sure you simplify it, but then I want you to explain its meaning. So here you can see I started you out with your sentence on what it should look like when you are explaining its meaning. Now go ahead and pause your video, work this guy out, and then push play to check your work. Okay, so when we're doing this, the first thing it says is the number of suns to the number of moons. So we have to count our suns. So I'm noticing that there are 4 suns. So I write the 4 down first. And then when I count our moons, I get 6. So there are 6 moons. Now remember we said that you do have to simplify it. So to simplify this, 2 is the largest number that goes into 4 and 6. Therefore, my final ratio is 2 to 3. What that means is for every 2 suns, there are 3 moons. And that isn't your entire answer. So this part right here in red, the 2 to 3, and then the sentence as well. You have to have both when you're explaining these in your work. So let's look at example 2. We are now looking at page 21. In this example, you are given a table. So sometimes you're going to have to read a table and have more information than sometimes you necessarily need. But in this case, you'll notice that we're going to need all the information. So number 2 reads, several students named their favorite flavor of gum. Write the ratio that compares the number who chose fruit to the total number of students. So in this example, you're trying to find the number of students who chose fruit. So when you look over at your table, easy enough, you can see where our fruit number is right here. So the total number of kids that chose fruit was 3. So then it says here we're going to compare it to the total number of students that basically just voted on what their favorite gum was. So that means we have to add all 3 numbers. So all of these 3 numbers that I'm over here like scribbling out in highlighter, all these 3 numbers do need to be added together. So we would be doing 9 plus 8 plus 3 plus 1, and when you add them all together, you get 21. So now what you're going to do is, since it's asking us for the fruit to the total number, we write our ratio. So we know that the number of students that like fruit is 3. The total number is 21. But now you have to simplify this. So the largest common factor between 3 and 21 is 3. So I'm going to divide both numbers by 3, and I end up getting 1 over 7. So our answer for this one ends up being that the ratio is 1 to 7, 1 to 7, or 1 to 7. You can see that down here below, the part that I just uncovered, you can write it any of the 3 ways that are listed. However, the most common way, once again, will be the way that makes it look like a fraction, simply because you're going to be simplifying these, and it's easier to simplify them when your numbers are written horizontally, one above the other. So now in order to explain what this means, remember, the explanation on this one is worded slightly differently than the other one. So on this one here it says, so 1 out of every 7 students preferred fruit-flavored gum. So instead of us saying that for every 1 piece of fruit there are fruit-flavored gum, there's 7 other flavors, that's not the case, because that's really not what that means. Since we're talking about the number of students here and what their preferences are, we need to be able to word this so that it says that for every 1 kid that liked the fruit-flavored gum, 7 others preferred something different. So 1 out of every 7 students preferred fruit-flavored gum. So I would put a box around that part, and so this way when you're talking about information that talks about the total or the whole amount where you're having to add numbers together, this is what your explanation should look like. So let's go ahead and go through another example. So in the middle of that same page, now we're talking about something different. We're talking about yogurt. Monday's yogurt sales are recorded in the table. Write the ratio that compares the sales of strawberry yogurt to the total sales. Okay, so in this one, we're going to be doing some filling in the blank. So if we look at the table and figure out how many strawberry flavored yogurts were sold on Monday, you would find that we had 8. So in our first box, we're going to write 8. Well, the total number of yogurts sold that day, we would have to add up all 4 numbers. So you would do the 3, the 6, the 7, and the 8. And when you add them all together, we get 24. So the number of strawberry yogurts that were sold were 8. The total number were 24. Now this division sign right here is asking us to simplify this. So the largest number that goes both into 8 and 24 happens to be 8. So we're dividing both the numerator part and the denominator part by 8. And you end up getting 1 over 3, or 1 to 3. So what that means is one out of every 3 yogurt cups sold were strawberry. And there is our explanation again. All right, guys, now it's your turn to give this a try. So I want you to pause your video and give this a try. It's going to look just like the previous 2 examples, which meaning examples 2 and 3 that we just completed. So go ahead and pause now and push play when you're ready to go. Okay, so I looked to see what the cat number was. That was 8. I added up all my numbers. I got 32. So my initial ratio was 8 to 32. However, I needed to simplify it, so I got 1 to 4. So basically, my explanation would be 1 out of 4 pets sold were cats. Okay, so let's turn the page, and this is on page 22 now. So this one's our last one that we're going to be working on. So in this next example, it says Katie wants to divide her 30 flowers into 2 groups so that the ratio is 2 to 3. So it asks us here to, it says step 1, use a bar diagram to show the ratio of 2 to 3. So right now, don't pay attention to those 6s that are inside that box. So I'm going to cover them up for you real quick. So don't pay attention to these 6s because that's the part you kind of have to figure out. So here, it says here to draw it so that, that you want the ratio of 2 to 3. So that's why they have 2 boxes on the top and 3 on the bottom. Now the other key thing that they said in the problem was she has a total of 30 flowers. So what you need to do is you need to somehow separate the 30 flowers so that they're even amongst like inside these boxes. So step 2 over here reads that since there are 5 equal sections, they're getting the 5 from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each section, or all the sections together, would represent 30. You would do 30 divided by 5 to get 6 flowers, meaning that there would be 6 flowers in each of those boxes there. Now, when I do this, I kind of approach it a little bit differently. Now, we're still not done with our problem yet. So over at the bottom of your screen, you'll see here, since our ratio was 2 to 3, and I know we need a total of 30 flowers, what I like to do, and I think it's just a different method, is I add up what I have here. So 2 plus 3 gives me 5 total. So I know I have a total of 30 flowers. So I need to do 5 times some number that would give me 30, which our missing number in this case would be 6. So what that means is there would be a group of 6 flowers and a group of 6 flowers here. And I put the 6 twice because there are, my ratio is 2 right here. And then my 3 means I need 3 boxes with 6 in each of those. And that's how we came up with all the 6s up in the example above. So now the question does say, actually the question doesn't say, come to think of it, but it's supposed to say how many flowers does she have in each row or in each grouping. So if you look at the top, so now I'm looking at this part right here and then I'm putting a box around, or if you look at my examples, this part right here, She's got 12 total. And then if you look at the bottom, she's got 16. When I do 6 plus 6 plus 6, that's going to give me, I said 16, I meant 18. 6 plus 6 plus 6 will give me 18. So she's got 12 on the top and 18 on the bottom. And then this is where they went ahead and wrote the explanation for that one there. Okay. So, close to done. Now it's your turn. So what you need to do before you come into class tomorrow is make sure you have this page done. You're just doing problems 1 through 4 only, and it's going to be everything that we've been doing. So it's going to require you to do some counting of the pictures that you have here, but be sure to also explain the meaning like it asks you to. I know they did not give you a lot of room to write your sentences, but it is a small sentence, and see if you can kind of get it to fit over these open spaces to the right of the pictures. All right, you guys, that's it for now, and we'll see you back in class.